Hello, listeners. This is Kat, and welcome back to Put Your Hands Up Podfics. This will be the continuation of Innocent Until Proven Guilty. This will be Part 8, Chapter 8, entitled Truth. Seated in Nezu's office, Izuku couldn't help but scan the room. Nothing changed since his last visit. Same number of exit points, same strategies for escape, excluding the new variables. This time, it wasn't just him and Nezu. This time, Aizawa-sensei and Detective Tsukauchi were here as well. The room was large, but it felt suffocating. The four of them were seated on two couches with a small coffee table settled in between. Aizawa-sensei was seated to his left, with Nezu and the detective across from them. On the table between them lay a folder, contents unknown, a pile of Izuku's notebooks, a recording device, and cups of tea for everyone present. Izuku didn't dare touch his yet. He was still nursing the coffee he brought with him, although he was definitely awake now. Now, Midoriya-kun, allow me to explain this process to you so there is no confusion. Nezu spoke up suddenly, breaking the tense silence they'd all settled into upon sitting. For starters, Detective Tsukauchi, whom I understand you've met before, is here today to not only administer the truth serum, but also to question and record these proceedings. The detective sent Izuku a warm smile, although his eyes betrayed his nervousness. Regardless, Izuku appreciated the gesture. Your homeroom teacher is also present, not only as a familiar presence for you, but also as a witness on behalf of the other students as well. Nezu continued. Beady eyes locked on Izuku. It made sense. Aizawa-sensei could attest to Izuku's innocence after this, not just his opinion, but proof. Finally, I myself am here to assure we receive all the answers we're looking for in order to prove your innocence, Nezu concluded. There's that wording again. It put Izuku on edge, as it was confirming his fears that this was more than just to prove his innocence. Tsukauchi spoke up then to explain the serum. While it's not widely used, especially on minors, he added as his eyes cut harshly to Nezu, it is a fairly simple procedure. The serum itself just doesn't taste very good, so it's best used as an additive to something else, such as a drink. I took the liberty of adding it to your tea, Nezu chirped happily. All eyes drifted to the principal in disbelief. Izuku swore he heard Aizawa mutter, psychotic rat, into his capture scarf, but he had to be mistaken. Right. Shaking himself from his stupor, the detective continued on, turning back to Izuku. You will speak and act unfiltered. You will not only express your true thoughts and answers to questions, but also act as a true version of yourself, he explained softly. What? Izuku was fighting every instinct to not freak out right now. It's one thing if he has to answer honestly, but now his personality too? This is more than he was expecting, but that was a mistake, as this was Nezu's game they were all playing. If you don't have any questions, Midoriya-kun, we will begin as soon as you're ready, Nezu said, gesturing with a paw to the cup of tea in front of Izuku. Nezu and Tsukauchi both were in the know on One for All, but Sensei wasn't. This could go really badly if they weren't careful. Truth be told, though, Izuku didn't think he'd mind if Aizawa were to find out. The man had been helping Izuku all week. He talked him through this, supported him, and even defended him to his classmates. Teachers didn't do that for Izuku, so that had been a shock. Honestly, outside of the threat of expulsion their first day, and how pissed he had been after they rescued Katsuki, Izuku hadn't seen the man genuinely angry or upset. At least not at him. That's already a huge step compared to Aldera. With one quick glance at his teacher next to him, he received a reassuring nod, and he grabs the cup, downing it in one go. Plus fucking ultra. The moment Midoriya drank that serum, the kid changed. It seemed subtle at first, but on close inspection, it was more drastic than it seemed. Gone was the shakiness and the nervousness in the boy's posture. Any fidgeting from before stopped completely, and the tension in his shoulders dropped. Sitting to his side, Shouta didn't get a full glimpse until the problem child turned his way. But when he did, the boy studied Shouta, eyes calculating and cold. Unbelievably, he found he preferred the exhausted eyes the kid was sporting earlier that morning over this. He tilted his head as he regarded Shouta before he turned his attention back to Nezu. As soon as those eyes were off him, Shouta released a breath he didn't know he was holding. This was Midoriya unfiltered. Nothing compared to the way the kid was staring down Nezu. The two of them didn't speak a word, but it appeared as though they were having a full conversation. Nezu's smile sharpened, and his eyes held a familiar glint Shouta recognized from back when he was the rat's student. "It's nice to finally meet you, Midoriya-kun." Now, despite the use of the true serum, I'll be asking you some preliminary questions. I'll start the recording now. Naomasa explained, as he pressed record on the device. To be completely honest, he was a bit unsure of how best to go about this. The kid was sitting so still, eyes locked on his every move. Despite his desire to keep One for All under wraps, it seemed inevitable that it's going to come up. Standard questioning requires a confirmation of the person's quirk. Please note for the record, this is Detective Tsukauchi Naomasa conducting this interview. My quirk is called Lie Detector, making me capable of determining if someone is lying. Present with me for this interview are both Pro-Hero Eraserhead and Principal Nezu of UA. Subject has already been provided true serum. The boy across from him didn't seem to react at all. It was a bit unnerving how calm he appeared. Clearing his throat, Naomasa began with some simple questions. Please state your full legal name for the record. Midoriya Izuku. True. Where do you attend school? UA High School. True. What made you decide to apply to UA? The heroics course, the proximity to my home, and the school policies. True. Nezu's head tilted slightly at that response. What made you decide you wanted to be a hero? I didn't decide, was the immediate response. True. So much for an easy start to this. Can you elaborate on that, please? Yes, I can. True. Aizawa choked, gaze snapping to Midoriya. The boy said nothing more. His tone had been almost bored for each question so far, and there had been zero hesitancy from him before answering. Naomasa just ignored it. Truth serum required clear questions to be asked after all. What do you mean you didn't decide you wanted to be a hero? Heroics and saving people has always been my dream, Detective. I never had a choice in that. True. While there was no delay, Midoriya spoke with a hint of determination to his words. There was a brief pause as the adults in the room took in his response. How do you feel about living in the dorms? An odd question, but likely one Nezu chose to make the kid more comfortable. I love it. It's an escape compared to home. True. Aizawa bristled at that, and Naomasa couldn't quite believe it himself. Yagi always said the boy idolized his mother. To think he would consider not living with her as an escape was shocking to say the least. Not to mention, the boy looked pale having said what he just did. Yes, this was very concerning. For the record, can you state the name of your quirk and its function? Naomasa wished he didn't have to ask it, but not doing so would have made Aizawa suspicious regardless. Yes, I can. True. This is why true serum is a pain in the ass. Allow me to rephrase. What is the name of your quirk and its function? Midoriya closed his eyes. As he spoke his next words resigned. I'm quirkless. True. Nezu, what all do you want me to ask the kid? You said Aizawa is sitting in on this. There are things that will certainly come up in a standard line of questioning. Now, Detective, I wouldn't worry. Aizawa-kun is more than capable of keeping a secret should the need arise. Nezu's tone chipper as always. But rest assured, I have a list of a few questions I'd like you to ask that should yield us the results we're looking for, and keep things of value protected. An unassuming piece of paper was slid across the desk to Naomasa. Picking it up, he sighed, resigned that this just became more complicated than he expected. I'm quirkless. All sound had stopped in the room. Shouta wouldn't have been able to hear anything anyway because all the blood in his body rushed to his ears just now. Naomasa looked like he was going to faint any second now. The problem child had been answering his questions with no hesitation, but given an opportunity to withhold anything, he would. This isn't possible. There's something wrong with the true serum. Clearly that's a lie, Shouta argued. The room was quiet again, following Shota's words, and he scanned the others. Naomasa looked pale. Nezu's expression remained unchanged. And Midoriya had a single tear track running down his cheek. His eyes were still closed, almost like he was hiding from his own words. No, it couldn't be. Nezu, Shouta growled out. What the hell is going on here? The rat's black eyes met his, and while Shouta knew he could hide his every emotion, he let him read it this time. Sincerity. Things will likely be cleared up in a moment, Aizawa-kun. Let's proceed, Detective, Nezu commanded, tone leaving no room for argument. He resolved to keep his eyes on his problem child, needing to know what the hell was going on here. Yes, of course. Naomasa cleared his throat, eyes looking everywhere but Shouta, and continued on. We have seen you use a quirk, Midoriya. How is it possible for you to be quirkless and also have a quirk? The words appeared to be clawed out of Naomasa's throat. He didn't want to do this either, it seemed. I was given a quirk called One for All by All Might. It's still his quirk even though I now possess it as the newest holder. Therefore I have no quirk of my own, and am otherwise quirkless. The boy's eyes were still closed. Shouta took a shaky breath, trying to stamp down all his racing thoughts. Midoriya's hands were shaking. Process this later with Hisashi. You know Midoriya is telling the truth. When did All Might give you his quirk? Shouta questioned softly. Midoriya's gaze snapped over to him so quickly it barely registered. His eyes were glassy as they met Shota's. The day of the entrance exam. 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 The kid was still staring at Shouta, trying to read him. It was as though he feared his response. Makes sense. I did almost expel him on the first day. I'm going to kill Yagi. Why didn't you tell me, kid? He could have helped so much more had he known. I was told to keep it secret, that telling people was dangerous and could get them hurt. Shouta growled and turned to Nezu, enraged. You knew. Not a question, but the rat responded nonetheless. Of course I knew, Aizawa-kun. I have known the truth of Yagi's quirk for many years now. It was said so flippantly, it only angered Shouta further. He lost it. Why the hell wasn't I informed? I'm his homeroom teacher, the one responsible for him as a student at this school. Do you think Yagi was capable enough to handle this training on his own? This quirk broke Midoriya's bones for Kami's sake. What the hell were you thinking, Nezu? Had I known, I would have... You would have what, Aizawa-kun? Nezu cut in sharply. You would have spent more time focused on Midoriya-kun. You would have never thought to consider expelling him on the first day. You wouldn't have made a snap judgment without reading the child's files first, What are you saying, Nezu? You assume I would have expelled him. Wouldn't you have? A child shows up to your class with zero experience with a quirk. Would you see that potential? Or do you only see it now after having grown attached? Nezu's eyes were sharp, and they saw into Shouta in a way he hated, but he refused to look away. Still, his boss's words cut deeper than he expected them to. What would he have thought if he knew the kid had only just gained a quirk? You would have cut him loose, maybe let him go to Gen Ed if he was lucky. Maybe. Not knowing Midoriya's character or heroic potential, he may have done just that. A glance at the kid showed his hands were still shaking a bit, so Shouta did the only thing he could think of to comfort him. He reached over, placing a hand on his. We've delayed long enough. Please continue with your questions, Detective. Why did All Might decide to pass his quirk on to you, Midoriya? Tsukauchi asked. He said I thought like a hero, that I moved without thinking when I ran in to save Bakugo from the sludge villain. Bakugo? Aizawa questioned. He knew Bakugo was the kid attacked by the sludge villain that day. That wasn't what confused him. What really threw him was... What happened to the nickname you always use for him? Midoriya snarled. Oh, please, Sensei. While he may be better than he used to be, and he may have stayed the same this past week, that doesn't mean he's existed in my mind as a friend worthy of a nickname since we were 4. It was honesty. Shouta knew that. But the pure vitriol in the kid's tone was so foreign. The boy turned to glare at Nezu. You wanted this. What I don't understand yet is why. Nezu didn't respond to the claim, simply sipped at his tea and studied the teen intently. You and Bakugo went to school together growing up. You've known each other a long time. Even have a rivalry today. The kid scoffed at Naomasa's use of the word rivalry. Interesting. What happened to cause the rift between you? Well, Detective, I guess that would be my 15 years of being a worthless, quirkless child in his eyes and the eyes of everyone else. Midoriya spat. He bit his lip, seemingly trying to fight to avoid saying any more. Sadly, that was a losing battle. Being relentlessly bullied, tormented, used for quirk practice and suicide baited for a decade tends to cause a rift. Does that answer your damn question? Suddenly, all the red flags Shouta had seen this year so far were running through his mind. He flinches at loud noises and touch if he doesn't see it coming. He has no sense of self-preservation. His pain tolerance is way too high. He doesn't trust adults. The way he scans a room. Fucking hell. Izuku wanted to leave this room, right now. This was turning out to be way worse than he imagined. This was supposed to be a way to clear his name, not a means of prying into his life. Too much was being revealed way too fast for comfort. Nezu likely already knew these things anyway. What was Nezu's angle here? Aizawa hadn't removed his hand from his yet, and surprisingly, he didn't hate it. Usually he could only stand it if Shouta was the one to touch him, but apparently that extended to his sensei now too. We can discuss this more in depth later, but for now let's move on to discuss your notebooks, Nezu chimed in. I am rather curious, Midoriya-kun. Why did you decide to start compiling these? Izuku didn't want to answer, but like all the other questions, he had no choice. Growing up quirkless, I was always fascinated with quirks, how they function. It started as just a hobby, a childish whim to dream up what quirk I might get. Eventually, it became a tool. Despite not gaining a quirk like I had hoped, I held on to my dream of becoming a hero anyway. I knew that picking apart others' weaknesses would allow me a chance at taking them down. Nezu hummed. And have you ever used your skills in analysis to harm? Yes, I've used analysis during our encounters with villains. I've also used my analysis to help me defeat my classmates during class exercises, which at times they have been harmed. I see. And during these class exercises, is your goal to hurt your classmates? No, the goal is to beat them through sparring or other means. I've never wanted to harm any of my classmates seriously, or outside the parameters of school-sanctioned activities. For what purpose did you write analysis of your classmates in these notebooks? Nezu questioned. A few reasons. For starters, I wanted to be able to effectively develop strategies against them for class. Not only that, I wanted to understand their strengths so I could plan out team strategies as well. Lastly, I wanted to understand their weaknesses to help them develop ways to combat them and improve. Izuku was happy to get that off his chest. This was the reason his classmates were suspicious in the first place. Midoriya, Tsukauchi began. Have you ever given your analysis to anyone? Yes, but only Shoto. I gave him an analysis I did of his quirk to help him get comfortable using his fireside. I'm sure he appreciated that, problem child. Aizawa said, smirking, confusing Izuku. What was that look for? It was obvious from a mile away that Todoroki and Midoriya were crazy about each other. That was one bet Shouta was sure to beat Nemuri on. Okay, Midoriya. Have you ever sold your analysis to anyone? Now Masa asked. It was one thing to gift something and another to sell it. Clearly, Nezu wanted to be thorough with his line of questioning. No. True. Are you in any way working with or aiding the League of Villains? No. True. Are you a traitor? This was it, the question to hopefully end this mess. No, I am not. True. The boy sighed in relief after getting the words out, like a tension finally snapping free. To put this kind of stress on a child was unthinkable. The burden of one for all was bad enough, but an unfounded accusation like this from people he trusted? It's just cruel. Well, I'd say that clears that up. Now Masa started, only to be cut off by Nezu. Not quite, Detective. I have a few more questions I'd like to ask of Midoriya-kun here. Off the record, of course. Nezu, what? Aizawa started, but his boss didn't give him the chance, simply raising a paw at him. Based on your answers today, Midoriya-kun, I'm a bit concerned about a few things, and as your principal, I feel it best to go over these in order to make sure you are safe. The rat's eyes had that damn glint in them again. Now, Midoriya-kun, you spent 15 years quirkless and still identify as such today, despite your inherited quirk. I'm aware, as are the other adults in this room, of the statistics surrounding the quirkless. Shouta felt bad for the kid. He was shaking despite Shota's attempts to soothe him. The glare he was sending Nezu's way was vicious, and he doesn't envy the rat one bit. What is your home life like? Nezu asked. Shouta couldn't deny he was curious as well. Lonely. I've raised myself for years, and I'm lucky to see my mother a few times a year now. Izuku bit out through clenched teeth. What the hell? The kid only ever spoke highly of his mother. That was all an act. Shouta really should stop this, but he couldn't deny getting to the bottom of some of his concerns is a good idea. If the kid needed help, then they could help him, but not unless they know what's going on. He was broken from his thoughts by the sound of Midoriya's sudden laughter, as the boy withdrew his hand as well. Bent over, head bowed, and curls falling in a curtain over his face, the laughter grew hysterical. I think I get it now. Why you're doing all this. Is this all to help me somehow? Are you trying to uncover all my deep, dark secrets, shine a light on them, and try to fix them? The boy cut off to continue laughing, a familiar glint in his eye. You thought what? That if I sobbed and told you how my mother hasn't taken care of me in years, how she hasn't bothered to love me for longer, that you could fix it somehow? I've taken care of myself for years. I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm fine. It was clear then that he was trying to say he's fine, but the serum was stopping him from doing so. Shouta didn't hesitate to pull the boy to him, wrapping his arms around him. His eyes snapped to Nezu as he spoke soft reassurances to the kid. The rat's eyes made Shouta do a double take. He was sympathetic, remorseful. In all his years working and studying under Nezu, Shouta has seen that look one time. After Oboro. It's all right, kid, he soothed. I'm here. Take your time. You're all right. After a few moments, the kid calmed down. When Midoriya didn't move to pull away, Shouta didn't either. Instead, he chose to rub soothing circles on the boy's back, hoping to keep him grounded. Just ask your questions, Principal Nezu. I want this over with already. The child whispered sternly. Very well, Midoriya-kun. I must say, based on your statements thus far, it's clear your mother has been neglectful at the very least. Detective Tsukauchi will open an investigation into this, and rest assured, you'll be staying on campus here as that unfolds. I will not have a student in an unsatisfactory home. Nezu spoke sincerely, and the kid seemed shocked by this if the gasp he let out was anything to go by. Is that true? The child directed the question at Naomasa. Even from here, Shouta could see Naomasa's eyes soften as he gave a nod. Yes, Principal Nezu is telling the truth, and I can assure you that from what you've told us so far, you won't need to return home. Everything you say to us under the influence of true serum is certifiable evidence. Midoriya-kun, when did the neglect start? Nezu questioned softly. The boy didn't seem as angry as he answered this time. When I was 4, immediately after my quirkless diagnosis. She stopped walking me to school. I didn't see her as often. And as I grew older, it only got worse. I rarely ever saw her. I would prepare meals, clean the house, and maintain it. It was like she wasn't even living there. She picked up more hours to avoid me. The response was soft-spoken, but Shouta found his heart breaking. This is much worse than he imagined. He tightened his hold on the kid, more for himself than anything. That should be enough for Detective Tsukauchi to run with for now, but I must ask, did your mother ever harm you physically? No. Shouta released a slow breath at that. Thankfully she hadn't abused him. He would have had to tear her to pieces otherwise. Izuku was exhausted, but strangely, he also felt a bit more relaxed. Aizawa-sensei's hold on him was helping a bit, but getting these things off his chest was surprisingly nice, albeit unfamiliar. That's good to hear, Nezu chirped. Now, as you are aware, discrimination amongst the quirkless community is quite high. What were you subjected to over the past decade as a result of your quirkless status? What wasn't I subjected to? This'll be easy. Just make a list. I was viewed as weak, useless by everyone. Teachers and adults either pitied me or treated me like scum. I would be graded unfairly, not permitted to score higher than those with quirks because, to them, it meant I had to be cheating. There was no way a quirkless kid could be smart. Izuku took a breath before continuing. I was forced to hide my intelligence by intentionally getting answers wrong. It satisfied my teachers if I knew my place, he growled. That upset Izuku more than anything. He was smart, but he couldn't show it. No one spoke up, letting him keep going, as they knew he wasn't done. My peers outcasted me, with the help of my former childhood friend turned bully. Bakugo took it upon himself to lead the taunts and jeers daily. As I said before, I was used for quirk practice, especially for him. He subconsciously touched his shoulder, where one of the worst scars was. By middle school, the other students started getting bored with their old taunts and chasing me after school. They wanted a new way to break me. It started small, spider lilies on my desk, waiting for me every morning at first. Sensei's grip tightened, and when Izuku met his eyes, he saw unbridled rage swimming in them. He was pissed. Not at Izuku. For Izuku. Eventually, they moved to vocal suicide baiting. Bakugo didn't participate in it at all until towards the end of 3rd year. He only did it one time. I think a part of him regrets it. Outside of school, I was shunned heavily in the community. Forced to pay extra in stores, ignored, and generally outcasted. Izuku shifted his eyes to the floor, not wanting to see anyone's reactions anymore. This was a lot. It's one thing to bottle it up and pretend it doesn't matter for a decade. It's another to watch it spill out and to be left surrounded by all your past injustices. Rest assured, Midoriya-kun, I, along with the detective here, will be taking legal action against your former schools. They will not get away with discrimination and poor treatment of a student to this degree. Nezu spoke with a hint of steel in his voice. Glancing up, Izuku looked at his face, at the scar adorning it. In that moment, he knew for sure. You understand, he breathed. The principal's eyes widened slightly, then softened a nearly imperceptible amount. But Izuku saw it. I understand, Midoriya-kun. His words softer than Izuku had heard them yet. He felt, more than saw Sensei's gaze turn to Nezu. You did all this to help me. You couldn't tell Aizawa-sensei about One for All, could you? Izuku pushed. Nezu was rather impressed with the boy sitting across from him. This child had managed to unravel exactly what it was Nezu had planned today. Quite an impressive feat, while being subjected to emotional turmoil like this. Midoriya had not only been questioned on if he was a traitor, but also on his home life and past sufferings. The boy was correct. Nezu understood far too well what it was like to be beaten down and made lesser by society, to see intelligence squandered out of misplaced prejudice. Nezu saw himself in Midoriya. He saw the raw intelligence, the analytical eye, the overwhelming determination stemmed from years of being the only voice pushing yourself forward. Nezu was going to help this child, cultivate his mind, push him to reach his own potential. That is correct, Midoriya-kun. While I was unable to voice anything on the matter of One for All, now that your teacher is aware, we are free to discuss it, and Aizawa is now a resource at your disposal. Perhaps a conversation should take place with Yagi as well, he suggested. It was almost uncanny. The boy was looking at him as if he were a new person. His eyes were blown wide in shock. In a way, that was true. Nezu was appearing in a new light to him. It's not every day someone uncovers his true motivations, but he won't lie to the child. Not about this. While I understand this may not have been the most ideal way to reveal your history to us, it was important these things came to light. Now that we have the answers we need, please allow me to explain the details on how this will go moving forward, and then Aizawa shall take you back to the dorms to rest the remainder of the day. All right, listeners, this concludes Chapter 8 of Innocent Until Proven Guilty. Chapter 9 will be up next. I have to say, this was probably one of the ones that I was really excited to post. I was so looking forward to podficking
The interrogation scene, it's like it was awaited on my end as well. I know other people were like, when are we going to see the interrogation? And I just was so stoked for it. For myself, it was really nice to do the shifting points of views. Personally, that was one of the things I liked when I was writing the chapter and even reading it, because we're shifting from like now Masa to Aizawa to Izuku, who the whole time Izuku's trying to understand why Nezu is doing this. Why is he asking all these additional questions? Right? Why did he underestimate him to begin with? And I really like how this played out. I was so excited about it. But I'd love to hear your thoughts and reactions because, again, it helps me out to know what you're thinking. So drop your comments below for me. Let me know the reactions you had to Aizawa learning the truth about One for All, to Izuku's history with his mom being revealed, to Nezu's motivations coming out all throughout this chapter. I'd love to hear what you're thinking. And as always, thank you all so much for listening.